All right, guys. Top Bins with Twins. We're checking in for our therapy session of the week. This is for everybody, I'm sure, listening, experiencing on this podcast, a lot lower point total than we expected. And I know I'm a little down in the dumps. How are we feeling, Kyle and Luke?
Yeah, and to start out with, Kyle, welcome for joining us on the pod. Really happy to have you as a second-time visitor to the podcast. So thanks for joining us. Kyle, how's your week been?
Spain without the S.
Feel that.
Yeah, I am currently sitting on, I think, my lowest ever total of 11 points. Luckily,
Luckily, hear that? Those footsteps are creeping up behind you. I'm gonna catch you.
I feel like you this week, Paul, because every single person on my bench, other than Matty T, returned for me, and the only person that returned in my team is Leno with 1 point, with one extra point. He got 3 overall.
Is it not so frustrating when that happens?
Oh yes, it's terrible. Luckily, I do have Trippier coming off my bench for Oscar. So that'll bump me to 20, but then I have Gordon on my bench with 7 points, which that was just kind of a risk. And then Cabore's on my bench with 8 points, which who would have foreseen that? So, we had a rough week, but it happens. We move. Just dropped my overall rank by 100,000, but we're good.
Ouch! That one definitely hurts. I mean, but really, there's nothing that you could have really done, right? I mean, who could have foreseen Holland blanking? 1 second, I gotta let the dog out. But Holland blanking against
Luke.
Salah with Luton blanking. Just, I mean,
he should not have
that, right? No, he should not have.
Darwin Nunez, miss of the season,
dude. I don't know. Did you see? I guess Kyle, you didn't get to watch all the Chelsea and Tottenham game, but okay, Jackson had a hat trick today, but he easily could have had 5.
I did see a couple. I had it on while I was working and saw a couple chances where he was one-on-one and he, but chances he should put away. But I mean, also Vicario had a great game and he kept him in it for quite some time. So
good.
Props to him. I don't think 4 goals is reflective on his effort, just kind of how the game went.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I think I guess we could dive in a little later on that whole match, but I don't know. I think that Vicario, he deserved to have a clean sheet for that match. He was phenomenal. And honestly, kind of somebody that we'll have to see how Tottenham plays out with injuries and everything, but there's a lot of question marks around, let's say, everybody's FPL team right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great point, Paul. But going back to Spurs, do you all think that red for Romero, do you think that's justifiably a red in your opinions? Okay, Paul, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Easily. And you know how I feel about Chelsea because
for those who are on the podcast, Paul just held up a sign saying F Chelsea.
But it
doesn't just have one letter. It's all 4 letters.
It says 4 letters and it rhymes with duck, just so everybody knows. But anyways, Romero, to me, the challenge, it's in the box. He does win the ball. He clears it. But I mean, he ends up on the inside of Enzo's ankle. And that's just a crazy, dangerous place to end up. I'm sorry, but I know he cleared it. He won the ball, but to me, there has to be he went in, flew into that. I think it's a pen. I think it's a red too. I mean, he was lucky not to be sent off 10 minutes before. I mean, that was soft.
That one he did not deserve to be sent off. That was just sensationalized. No. He did kick out, but he barely touched him. There's no world that should be a red.
But in the whole context of the whole schematics of the Premier League, we know what kind of player Romero is.
Yeah, but you can't judge him based on that.
But like, I don't know, like referees are human. They see things, like they understand what goes on behind all this stuff. Like, I mean, to me, if we're just looking at the challenge by itself, it's a red. We don't have to discuss everything else. But like, to me, it's a red.
And see, Paul, I actually think kind of the opposite. So I guess in the letter of the law, yes, I think it's a red card. Do I agree with it? No. And here's why. More for the fact that in the box, he's going to clear the ball, and two players coming full kind of force into each other, that he's going to clear the ball and just trying to get it out, kind of lift it because there's a player right in front of him, so he's got to get under it. And Enzo is second to the ball, so he pulls up, and he's rewarded for that because he pulled up. That Romero wins the ball, and because he wins the ball, he follows through. Whereas if Enzo tries and goes, like, puts his foot in for the ball, they probably both hit the ball at the same time, and that challenge doesn't happen. So for me, I don't like the fact that he's second to the ball and pulls up, that he gets rewarded for that. Whereas I think the first challenge is more likely to be a red card where he intentionally kicks out. And I think that, referees should probably be more stern in that aspect. Also, like towards last week when Anthony just did not go for the ball and just tried to kick out at Doku.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a grounds for, like, if referees wanted to try and eliminate that from the game. It is a little soft. I'd be pissed if that happened to City, but if that's what you're going for, like, technically I think that's more endangering the opponent than what happened today with Romero, which I think is just a byproduct of him trying to clear, and that's just the game.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And really, ultimately, through this entire Chelsea-Tottenham match, my main takeaway with all this, for the first time ever, I was really questioning if VAR should even be implemented, right? Because it's taking so long, and you've seen them make these repeated mistakes where these people is why they're making mistakes, because all this human error is just getting to be too much, right? And now because they've made all those mistakes, they're having to take 5 minutes with an easy offsides call that someone's off by 2 or 3 feet. They're still checking every single angle. It's getting to be too much, really, because you can't enjoy the matches, right? Because it's so delayed.
Yeah, I saw a tweet at halftime that had the layout of all the different things that happened in that first half. I'm not going to read it, but it's essentially like 8 different things that they took to VAR and looked at, and like the first half was very chaotic, but it's way too much at this point,
It is. Yep, I completely agree. And the chaotic nature of the Chelsea and Tottenham match really kind of displays, I think it's a great analogy for this weekend as an entirety, right? Especially tying it into FPL. Because if you look at it, the average out of the top 10K currently was 28.4 points.
Oh, shit.
How crazy is that, right? That's just a historically terrible week. And if we go back and think about our team selection, who's in our teams, people would easily expect to, from an optimistic perspective, expect to double their points that they have right now. So it's just really bad luck and makes for a very long week going into the next game week.
Also, can we talk about Haaland for a second? We can kind of bounce around a little bit, but Man City scores 6 goals, and Haaland is not involved with any of them, being he went off at 45. But like, what are the odds? It's like when Liverpool scored 9 last year, and Salah didn't have a single goal involvement. Like, how does this stuff happen? Like, as an FPL owner, I'm like, if honestly, if this week, if Holland would have got 2 goals, all of our Kyle, you captain Holland, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and look at too. So like all of our ranks would have gone up so much because I mean, I'm sure captaincy was a little spread out this week with Salah and everything. I don't know the effective ownership of Holland this week or Salah, but like our ranks would have skyrocketed if we would have got even one Holland result in this low point total week, you know?
I don't necessarily agree with that because I think so many people own Holland. It just would have pushed the average up, right? And he was definitely the most captain player this week. I think he was around something like 60 to 70%. So
listeners, back it up and don't listen to my point.
It would have been nice, right? I mean, good to at least see some points on the board, but I don't know if it would have made a huge difference for, say, like overall rank gains, you know?
Okay, fuck me.
I just think it's one of those weeks. I mean,
yeah.
a lot of upsets more this week that, you know, not really necessarily upsets, but results that people didn't see coming, and people who typically score and are in a lot of people's teams didn't score. So like, you got to think Man United almost drew to Fulham 0-0, which came down to extra time, barely an extra time. But then like Everton tying Brighton, wouldn't have expected that.
Brighton shouldn't have scored.
Really. Yeah. I mean, it was, what was it? That was an own goal, correct?
Yeah, Matoma played a ball in, and Ashley Young was the second defender. It's off his thigh, just loops over Pickford's head, which is
bye, Paul. But then Sheffield United beating Wolves, I wouldn't have expected that with the form Wolves are on.
Me neither.
Newcastle, Arsenal.
Get back.
We can hear you, Paul.
Honestly, would have been like not too surprising, but you would have thought that it would have been 1-1 or Arsenal would have scored and Newcastle wouldn't have. Not too surprising, but still something to look at. Nottingham Forest beating Aston Villa, I think, was a big one, and then Luton drawing to Liverpool. I think Sunday's fixtures were where a lot of people were looking at, hoping to get some big points with Diaby, Watkins, Salah, you know, and then Tsimikas on the bench.
Yeah. And then subs on.
And then he subs on. So it's, you know, it's just stuff that happens. It's just one of those game weeks. I think, Luke, was it you who going into this game week said that you thought you were going to have a bad one? And
I did, right? And
here we
are expecting to get blown out of the water by especially Salah. Like, Salah was the player who I was most fearful of going in this week.
Yeah, and it's funny how that stuff works, because I had Salah captained up until 30 minutes before deadline, and I switched over to Holland just because I'm thinking to myself that right now I'm in first place in our mini league, that I should play it safe, and this is a favorable matchup for Holland. I learned last year, I think we all learned last year, that if Holland has an opponent where it seems like he can score 3 goals, he will.
Outdoor, he will. Yeah, especially at home. At the Etihad, he's you know, usually a machine.
And I think if I would have captained Salah, that he would have scored. How it goes, but
he should have easily.
Yeah. If I could have taken one for the team, guys, and captained Salah, so you guys could have did this week. But no, it's just, I mean, it's one of those game weeks. I'm interested. I've already made my transfers for next week, but that's rough.
I'm gonna. So, like, speaking on Holland, I was really considering triple captaining him this week. I was, you know, up until the deadline, I was in my head like, what are the positives? What are the negatives? And ultimately, I felt like it wasn't enough of an advantage, right? Just because something didn't feel right. I still expected him to return, but I didn't feel like it was reliable enough. And luckily, I held the chip and still have it in my back pocket. So
he did this once or twice last year too, where City would blow an opponent out of the water and they're up 3-0, 4-0 at halftime, and Holland does not have a goal contribution and they take them off at half. I mean, it's just that time of the year where fixtures are starting to stack up. We all know about Pep Roulette, that Holland has been kind of immune to it, where he will start, but if they're coasting, he'll get taken off at halftime because he's important, especially now with this tweak of an injury. I know he was in training this week. I don't expect it to affect FPL too much, but I feel like he's going to sit out midweek in the Champions League.
So. Yeah, he'll probably. Who do they have in Champions League?
Let me check real quick, but I
think it's an away fixture, but I can't remember who they played last.
Isn't it? Is it
got a brace?
Is it Copenhagen? Who?
No, that's United.
No, that's City tomorrow. They're playing Young Boys.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. But really, like I don't know. The player that I'm really interested to see what his transfers in and out are like is Alvarez. Because what is that? 3 blanks in a row, I think. I think it's I know it's 2 for sure, but probably 3 in a row.
I can tell you he's in my team. Let's see. This week he blanked. Last week he blanked, so that's 2 game weeks in a row, because against who'd they play? Against Brighton, he did score and bonus points.
Yeah, so, and then you see Foden returning, right? But I think City have some difficult fixtures coming up. So I think a lot of managers will be moving on from him, and probably the transfer that I imagine a lot of people will make is just go Alvarez to Nketiah with Arsenal's upcoming fixtures. That seems like it's going to be very popular coming up soon.
Yeah, that's I think I have that one kind of running around my head a little bit.
Alvarez out?
No, I don't have Alvarez. Moving towards Eddie.
Right. Yeah.
Just kind of makes sense with the run of fixtures. We know he's going to be starting at the 9 most likely. So
yeah, I mean, Arteta is turning into be more unpredictable than Pep at this point. You just don't know who's going to play.
I guess like honestly, looking around at FPL, like right now, it's kind of a wasteland. Like I think if somebody I think me and Luke both have our wild cards still to play for this segment of the season. And I don't even know who I would wild card at this point. Like, there's not a team with excessively good run of fixtures, which Kyle was smiling on the pod because he wild carded earlier and it worked out very well for him. But like, I really don't know what I would do if I wild carded. Like, I think West Ham have a pretty good run going forward. Arsenal do too. And then after that, it's kind of like maybe Brighton do, which they've been so up and down lately.
Well, Paul, with this wildcard talk, would you be thinking of using your wildcard soon? I mean, there's a lot of injuries in teams now, and Holland.
Yeah, I like my layout for I did like my layout for next week, but with Madison going down, that gives me 3 players flagged in my team, and I don't want any blanks. So, but I also have 2 transfers rolling into next week, so there's a lot of questions running around my little head. So we'll see what happens. I don't have a set in stone plan, but like wild card is a possibility.
Yeah, I would imagine that next week there's going to be a massive amount of -4s taken, probably even some -8s, and maybe even a -12 here and there. But a lot of teams are going to be in tough shape.
I think everybody in our mini league should just go for -24s. That's what I would recommend. I think it's a full sin at this point. Like, make or break. Like, go for it.
This is crunch time in the season, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, we're going into match week 12. I mean, there's only 38 game weeks. I mean, there's not much time left. You got to be really, really, really send it.
Not much time. Hey, I'm not scared of those footsteps I hear, Paul. The season's almost over.
Yeah. So just for our non-mini league people, don't do that. Don't do that.
But if you're in the mini league, this is great advice.
Jerry, do it.
Jerry who?
Yeah, but I don't know. If you look at it, like, I think one of the teams that was super exciting like 3 or 4 weeks ago is Newcastle, and they've just been decimated by injuries. Like, Burn apparently is going to be out with back problems for a while now. So, I mean, their injury list
They said he's not going to be back until after the holidays.
Good God. I mean, who do they have that's going to play that?
Okay, so then this creates another interesting topic, right? Does that mean Trippier goes and plays left back?
Oh, I
And
hope
then
not.
if that's what he did in the match. And then they brought in Livermonte. So if he's playing left back, is he worth the price at that point? I would argue probably not.
I think personally, I'm giving him one more week, and then I think I'm transferring away from him just because of his price point. They have Bournemouth, which is a favorable fixture for them. Hopefully, he can keep a clean sheet, maybe get a goal contribution or two. But yeah, I mean, with his price point, look, I have Gordon in my team at the moment, which luckily I got in at 5, I believe.
You got him really early on.
Yeah, I got him right before he started. I got him the week that Harvey Barnes got injured. So
yeah, and then he subbed on, got what was a brace,
and got a goal, and now he's been influential. He's done well, and he's kind of proven that it's his spot to lose at this point. So
yeah, he's looked so good. I've been really impressed.
Yeah, I think at his price point that I have him at 5.5, I'd rather take that punt to get into Newcastle's fixtures than Trippier's 6 something that he's at.
He's up to 7 now. He's risen that many times, I think. But you are losing some team value there by taking him out. But in the long run, because I think you got him decently early on, so you probably have some value with him. But really, like, just with how crippled their defense is, it feels like Newcastle's defense is really hard to hold on to at this point.
Yeah.
And let's see. So they have
it goes next week's good for them. They play Bournemouth.
But they have Dortmund. They have Dortmund midweek in a almost must win, and they are going to Dortmund.
Yeah.
So that's an emotionally draining, really difficult test for them. And then you play Bournemouth on Saturday, so that's not much time to bounce back.
I mean, when they have to see the best player in the world midweek, what are they going to do?
Giovanni,
with Gio just like whipping through that midfield.
No. Here's what Gio's going to do: sit there, because he's not going to get in. I'm telling you, it's Terzic.
Can we just not? I'm still recovering from this weekend. Why did that flip? Did you see that?
It's not you, Paul.
Yeah, I don't know, guys, but like Trippier, I will say, yeah, Trippier at that price point after next week may be a sell.
I think that's going to be really popular and something that I'm definitely considering personally.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let's see. Can we talk about the Arsenal Newcastle game for a second?
Sure. Go for it. Arsenal fan, lead the way.
I want to hear your all's thoughts because I'll make it very clear. That goal should not have stood. There's no world in which it should have. It's rigged. I'm fully with Arteta. We're riding that one into the sunset. But like, what do you all think as non-Arsenal fans? Because my view is just jaded, but it's also right too. But
Kyle, you're the guest. Lead the way.
Gosh, okay.
I will fight you on this.
I just think that it shows how far that the league has to come with VAR, and I don't necessarily think refereeing in general. I think we've seen a decline in refereeing standards because of the implementation of VAR, that refs to let more go and just leave it up to VAR because that's how they're being taught how to referee now. So I think just the implementation of a few simple kind of things that I don't understand why ownership or the Premier League or whoever is not voting with this. But number one is we have goal line technology. Why don't we have that for the entire touch line?
Totally agree. Totally agree.
We now have had 2 instances this season where we're looking at angles and people are pulling up different angles where it looks like the ball's in, and then another angle where it looks like the ball's out.
And then you always get the announcers being like, "Oh, the pitch lines aren't a perfect straight line. You can't use that to judge."
And it's like, and it is camera angles and everything, because the ball, like, very rarely are we going to have a camera angle like straight down the line. But I mean, if we have the technology, like the Premier League is supposed to be the best league in the world, why? And it doesn't have to be on the sides, just on the goal. We have goal line technology, just expand it all the way across, because that seems where the controversial calls are happening. But number two is that I don't know why they voted against the automated offsides that they use in the world. So
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand why they would possibly not have an automated system where they just onside or it's offsides, it's out of bounds, it's inbounds. Like, why is it that hard?
Okay,
like,
so I looked into this, right? After that match, I was like, surely there's a reason why. And the clubs are able to vote, right? They have an annual meeting where they vote on different issues like this.
I believe it's right.
What?
The ownership voted against that this season. If
voted against it back in
20, I think we know who's to blame for this.
Chelsea are just the worst.
Just so everybody know, I was holding up my duck Chelsea sign.
Okay, but right, the reason why they voted against it's called semi-automated offsides. They voted against it at that point in time in 2021, the very end of 2021, because they said the technology was going to be outdated, and they did not trust that it would be able to be reliable. So this is why they're stuck with the current system of people trying to draw lines who don't know how to draw lines or know what the fuck the call is on the field before they
simple geometry. Like, come on, it's not even really geometry. Like,
the Premier League makes billions of dollars in revenue, and they cannot implement this. It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
But do you all think the Gabriel challenge at the back post? Do you all think that was a foul? Like, whenever Gabriel got taken out by Joelinton at the back post, that's the one I really have a problem with.
I thought it was. I thought he went straight into his back. And even behind that, right, it's possible that it was his arm that played the ball as well. We couldn't get a good camera angle on it. And then you can't get the camera angle on the offsides, possibly to Gordon. So I thought personally that he did go into his back, jumped with a lot of force, and I thought it probably should have been called a foul, right? But I guess it's up to interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for I know you're not gonna like to hear this, but I think with the current state of VAR and their technology, I think they probably came to the correct call. And I think there's a couple things that, like, I mean, we can, I think we all have our own idea of like what VAR should be there for. But for me, I thought VAR in my mind is that I think VAR is supposed to be there for clear and obvious errors. It's not supposed to start the game, stop the game, start the game, stop the game. Like, let's take 5 minutes and draw some lines to see if this is offsides. Like, I think it's supposed to be like, you look at a picture, and this might come up with very controversial things, but like, I think it should be like, look at a picture, the officials on the field should go back to what it was before, and like, if they think it's offsides, hold up the flag and like stop the play. I know that it's like difficult, but like that way they can, and then if it's a goal, they just pull it up and like they look and they'll be like, if it's close, be like, not clear and obvious, go with the call on the field. Or like a foul, like the Joe Linton one, like the ref on the field, if he thinks it's a foul, he should call it then. And I think that's the problem with it, is that refs are letting people get away with more because they're just like, well, if it was a foul, it'll go to VAR and then we can check it, which I understand is like a safety blanket. Like, it can be seen as a good thing, but I think it's caused officiating standards to drop because they're just letting so much go. And then once they go to see it, it's like, is it a foul? Is it not a foul? Why didn't you call it a foul on the field? And I think that's really what it should be, not VAR being like, we think this is a foul. I think it should be a conversation, be like, well, why don't you think it was a foul on the field? And if they say like, I couldn't see it, or they'll be like, I think it was minimal contact, that should be the call.
Another big part of another big part of VAR that really frustrates me. I do not think the VAR official who is separated from the match, who's reviewing these calls, he should not be a match official, right? I think that's a big part of it as well. You see these, speculations and rumors about, it's a fraternity. They're trying to protect each other and make calls to where they don't look too bad. That should not even be in question. I think the people who are making those calls, drawing the lines, doing those reviews for VAR, they should be completely segmented away from the rest of the general referees who are actually doing matches and they're in person. I think that would help, seem more transparent, not as much speculative, whatever people want to think is going on between them. And I think that would help out a lot, right? I don't know. VAR has a lot of issues. So go ahead.
Also, bringing up all that, I think another thing VAR should really be used for is like people like elbowing people in the back of the head in the middle of open play. Like, that's insane to me that he wasn't sent off.
They checked it.
I don't know what the hell they're looking at. Like, that's clear and obvious.
They cleared it, right? In the match, they went through, cleared it, and said it was fine.
Okay, I didn't watch the match live because I was day drinking, but like, I don't understand how you missed that. Like, I mean, it's simple. Like, and yeah, obviously, like, I'm not for people being sent off for stuff like randomly. Like, you saw what happened today in the Tottenham Chelsea match. Like, when people get sent off, like, the match kind of just goes to shit and you lose the spectacle of it and everything. But like, as an Arsenal fan, there's no way Jorginho should be elbowed in the back of the head and play just continues.
But okay, it's the nature of the foul as well, right? Just completely unnecessary, goes out of his way to hit him. That's why I think VAR should have intervened, right? It was unnecessary. And what was it? It's unnecessary and dangerous or something like that. And that could be, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we want to pivot and maybe like talk about the fixtures for next week? Something that we think we could maybe target. Kyle, do you want to start out by telling us who you transferred in already?
No, you don't actually, Kyle, you don't have to. Like, in our yeah, don't, let's not do that.
Yeah, I won't tell you who I transferred in, but this has been something I've been struggling with a little bit these past couple weeks, and I think a lot of it has to do with currently, like, my team value is like 103. So I've gotten very lucky with transferring people in before they rise. Like, I think my highest riser is like Julian Alvarez. I think I got him at 6.7 early, like week 2 after I saw KDB got injured. And he's risen to 7.2, and is limiting me because I don't want to transfer him out. But this week I did transfer out Madison, and I did that shortly after the game. Him being injured, and then also with, a number of injuries that happened today for Tottenham. Their kind of upcoming run of fixtures. I've been tripled up on Tottenham for a while. It's worked out so far. But now this is kind of their first phase of adversity. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond. Keeping Son in there, and I still do have Udogi, who will be out next week, but I do still have those two in. And then I transferred out Foster because I brought him in from Burnley for I thought what was going to be like a good run of fixtures for Burnley, but he has not played.
Yeah, it's weird that illness. Something pretty serious going on, I guess. But
I mean, not a big Burnley supporter. I don't know what illness he has. I haven't read any press conferences from them or anything, but he's been out for 2 weeks, which I thought he would have returned in. So I've transferred him out, brought in a lower price striker to bring in another kind of higher priced midfielder. The only thing that I'm struggling with Madison is that I'm hoping that he is not hoping that he's hurt, but I'm hoping that, maybe this injury, they might be cautious with him and maybe limit his minutes and limit his impact and returns and everything, because I had him at a lower price point. And I think I probably lost about like 0.3 or 0.4 by transferring him out. That if I want to bring him back in, that it's going to be very difficult. I'm going to have to drop someone that I don't want to. Or, I mean, I am going to transfer out Trippier here soon, I think. So that should free up some cash if I do want to bring him back. But
yeah. But conversely, the good thing too is moving early on whoever you brought in. More than likely, whoever you brought in is probably going to go up at least 0.1 within the next week or so.
yes.
So that's a big plus, right? For that, you can make some of that back up over time.
So, question for you all: do you think Van der Ven getting hurt or Madison getting hurt, just like on surface value, not length of time they're out and everything, but like which one do you think actually is more detrimental to Spurs?
Depends on your Spurs assets. I think
Mm-hmm.
Van de Ven going out, I think, hurts Udogie's potential, because either one, he's not gonna have as many clean sheets. Based off of what I've seen of their defense so far, and him being such a important part, but also his speed getting back. That I think it's caused you
a lot
to be able to travel farther forward a little bit. And if maybe one time they get exposed by pace at the back, that Udogie might have to sit back a little further, or just even think about, like, have that little doubt in his mind, like, I can't venture forward, I have to get back.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kyle.
And with Udogie too, I mean, he's going to be out for the next fixture, right? And with Wolves away, that's somewhat of a good fixture.
That's a tough. I think it's a tough fixture.
No, on surface value, definitely. But Wolves have been a lot better than I thought they would be this season.
No, I agree. I think it's a tough fixture for Spurs. Like,
yeah, right. I agree, but he's going to be out for that. So, but then after that, Tottenham go Villa and then City, right? And City's at the Etihad, so that's going to be really difficult for them.
Etihad, you mean?
I think Madison's more important, though.
I think it's more important for their attacking side of it.
The reason I think Madison is so important is by Madison going out, I think that drastically decreases Son's value.
Yeah.
Think about all these teams that are paired up with Madison and Son. Say you have Madison out and you don't know if he's going to play or not, but now you're really worried about Son's route to points. How is he going to get played through? Like, Tottenham is a good team, right? And I don't doubt that. But I think Madison's the one who really unlocks Son as a striker. So I don't know what they're going to do, really.
I mean, they could drop Son back farther and put Richarlison back up front.
Maybe.
I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, honestly, I mean, I think Ainge has shown that he'll try shit. And I mean, like, they could throw, Brennan Johnson out on the left wing and Richarlison up front and Son tucked underneath, because he can create like that too. Yeah. Which, as a Son owner, I mean, there's a lot of, like, I think he's for sure possibly on the list to be moved this week for me, because there's just so many questions around him and he eats up a big price point and the fixtures are kind of changing a little bit and there's a lot of injuries. So he could be on the way out, even though he's been great for my club. Like, he's been awesome, but
you probably don't have too much value tied up in him either. So that makes making a move pretty easy.
Yeah, no, it's possible.
Yeah, and by the time you want to go back to him, maybe he's dropped in value too, right? You can get him a little bit cheaper.
Agreed. So what other fixtures do we want to? By the way, it's really weird that on Sunday there's 4 games that all kick off at I think 9 o'clock Eastern. And there's only one game, Chelsea and Man City, after that at 11:30.
Yeah, that is different.
Like four matches at the same time Sunday morning. That's kind of odd.
I don't remember what game week it is, but there's one coming up where all of the fixtures are on Saturday and all starting at the same time. I think it's game week like 14 or 15.
Yeah, I think it just has to do with this, the start of the holiday fixtures and
Yeah.
club competitions and everything that, you got to see City play. I guess this doesn't really matter because Arsenal and United are also, it's kind of interesting because don't United and Arsenal play Wednesday? And then
Which United and Arsenal?
Yeah, midweek.
Looking at it.
Yeah, I think their midweek fixtures Wednesday, and then both of them play Saturday. And City's midweek fixture is Tuesday, and they play Sunday.
Yeah, this is also a thing too that for all the listeners out there that maybe your first year playing FPL is that whenever we get like those Tuesday, Wednesday fixtures coming in, it's kind of hard to remember to set your team sometimes, which sounds like a very simple thing. But you have to be very aware of it because if you're waiting till Friday to make transfers and you want to see what happens, you may miss the deadline. So just be aware of where those deadlines sit on your FPL app.
Yeah, now that the holidays are coming up, we have
Flash. I'm sorry for everybody. Flash is just a good little guard dog.
but to
Flash. No. Go ahead, Kyle.
To answer your original question, Paul, I think favorable fixtures this week on paper. Arsenal against Burnley.
Yes.
United against Luton. Newcastle, Bournemouth. And then that's really it.
Yeah.
Villa, I don't see Villa against Fulham. Just Fulham played well against United. I know that they're United, but you don't know kind of game week in and out. But they do have quality, and after Aston Villa showing last week, don't necessarily know. Brighton had a bad game week, so it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. Liverpool, Brentford. Brentford are solid. I think people kind of underestimate Brentford, and I think that might be a difficult.
Brentford have been very up and down this year. So
Yeah.
I think you could see that game really going either way. I have no judge on that. Luke, you look like you want to say.
I think with Brentford, their issue was Rico Henry's injury. Right, they're playing really well, and then when he got injured, they had to adapt and change how they're playing a little bit because he was so forward and progressive for them. And now you see them kind of fully adapting and changing because they've had a good run the last couple of weeks. And luckily, Mbomo's returned really well, and that's really kept my team afloat at this point. Right, without him, I'd be on a sinking ship at this point.
You are leaking water a little bit, but you're still paddling along.
At least a lot of the boats in the water have holes in them now as well.
Yeah,
So-
that's called. I honestly, I really kind of do like the West Ham Nottingham Forest fixture. I've been really big on Bowen, and he was in my team early, came out for a while, and now I think I would love to pivot back to Bowen. I think you're going to see a lot of people maybe moving from Spurs assets, Madison or Son, to possibly Bowen.
I think that's fair, right? And this week, what I see in a lot of these good kind of idealistic fixtures, a lot of these teams are playing at home, right? When we look at Villa's at home, and they are a completely different side whenever they're at home in Birmingham as opposed to when they're away. Like they looked okay against Forest. It wasn't that they looked terrible, but they just couldn't piece it together fully. But I am hoping and praying that Hoyland figures it out somehow with Luton at home, because he's just been a terrible transfer for me. It's been bad. He's had chances, right, but just hasn't put the ball in the back of the net, and that's really what we need. But I think Arsenal is going to be the biggest target this week, with Burnley at home.
Who would you target, Luke, for Arsenal?
I think Nketiah is really popular. I think Saka, it would probably be Nketiah or Saka, one of those two. And then Martinelli definitely is really, Martinelli had the majority of their possession, was really their main progressive ball carrier against Newcastle. So Martinelli is an interesting one. He hasn't had a good season up to this point. Well, at least what we expect from him after last
He
year.
has been injured for part of it too. So that
Right, and there's that. But I think sneakily Martinelli could be a really good shout for this week against Burnley.
Yeah.
Be right back.
He has the ability to easily have a brace any given week. I mean, he's just very like depending on matchup and everything. But I will say I don't know if I love Martinelli as an asset at this point because he seems to play a lot better with Jesus. He just seems to play a lot better that way because the build up play between them is a lot easier for some reason. I think Eddie sometimes struggles with that. But obviously, I mean, he's developing. Hopefully, he keeps going this week. That clinical aspect that we really need to see up front from an Arsenal perspective, even just as an FPL owner looking at Arsenal. Like, I mean, Eddie's price point makes him really easy to get to. You can move there and save money, then move somewhere else in your midfield. So, just depending on what people need in their teams, I do think Arsenal's a good matchup this week. And also, I mean, like I said, West Ham. And Kyle, how do you think the Man City Chelsea matchup's going to go?
Either way, I think not either way as in like Chelsea are going to dominate or City's going to dominate. I think either City will run wild on Chelsea or it's going to be a very close game. I feel like watching today, Chelsea did not play well in the first 20 minutes, and Spurs had control, and they lost it. And I think City, being the team that they are and the experience that they have in their side, that if they can grab hold of the game in that first 20 minutes, like Spurs did today, that they could easily just shut Chelsea down and demoralize them. But that's any week with City against any opponent. That they always just kind of have the quality in their team to put teams away early and kind of just make it a training session. But on the flip side of that, you got Chelsea with Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer, both ex-City, especially Cole Palmer, ex-City academy graduate, and wasn't getting the time he wanted and seek to move it just this year. And so far he's been playing well, and he might come out with a point to prove against Pep and City. It could really go either way.
I will say, I think Chelsea assets are very hit and miss at this point. Like, I mean, I think there were a lot of people that had Jackson earlier in the season, and I was one of them. And like, he's been an XG merchant, and then we see him this week get a hat trick against a 9-man Spurs team. So like the metrics. So like we know that I'm kind of more like a visual person. I like to see how the teams laid out, all that stuff like in play. And Luke's a lot more of a stats person. And I think that like you're going to see numbers that are skewed at this point because Jackson's XG is going to kind of balance out. And then in the day, like I don't trust him as an FPL asset. I really don't. But I think Palmer is a great option though. I mean, he's on pins. He has a very low price point. Chelsea's run going forward. I mean, I don't love the run, but like, I mean, to have somebody on pins that that price point.
On that note, Palmer and Chelsea, really overall, their fixtures drastically flip at game week, let's say 16, right? At 16, they go Everton, Sheffield, Wolves, Crystal Palace, Luton, Fulham, and then Wolves and Crystal Palace a couple of weeks later, right? So they're going to be really popular in the near future. And I think Palmer is going to be really important to enabling people getting Slaw, Holland, maybe Trippier at that point. Arsenal fixtures are good as well then too, so you can enable Saka. But yeah, I really think that Chelsea have a nice run, and I don't really know what to expect from City and Chelsea, right? I don't think Holland is going to be captained. He's not going to be a high captaincy rate next week.
I think you'll probably see a lot of Arsenal captains or Liverpool captains. Maybe Villa if you have Watkins against Fulham at home. That's pretty spicy if you ask me. Or maybe somebody like maybe Diaby possibly.
I think you'll see some Bruno Fernandes as well.
Yeah.
If he's in people's teams, right? He's got to be in there in the first place.
Luke and Hoyland's posed for a big week.
I hope so.
Scores in the Prem, he's gonna pop off. Luton might be the team to do it. I'm just saying.
Sure hope so. But after their performance against Liverpool, I am not counting on anything at all.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly the thing. Like as an FPL manager, we want consistency, and that's why I'm so intrigued by Bowen. He just seems like he's just like we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, like how Harry Kane would just tick away at points as the season goes on, and just points here, there. Never huge totals, but I mean, like consistency means a lot in FPL. It really does.
And I mean, the Harry Kane of last season, that's Salah this year, right?
Yeah.
He's just taking away points, and he has the potential for those massive point hauls.
Yeah.
And I think Kyle's benefited from that a lot for sure. Sorry, West was sneezing.
Yeah, I hope you can't hear it flash, just mouth breathing beside me, but I don't know if we can.
No, I can't. Yeah. Yeah, but I think really that's a pretty good overview on this upcoming week. Paul, to close it out, do you want to kind of, I don't know, do you have any final thoughts? Kyle, any final thoughts as well?
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle. You can go first.
No, I mean, I'm with you guys. I think we hit everything. I think probably one of the biggest. I think the three biggest captains this week. I mean, it's hard to point out.
It's making an appearance on the pod now. People can't.
Captain Holland and everything, but I would say maybe three captaincy options that I'm interested in would be Bruno Fernandes, Ollie Watkins. I mean, and honestly, Saka would be a good one. So I think those three are going to have pretty decent effective ownership compared to previous. Yeah. But
yeah, I think so.
Big week after this.
Yeah, I don't even know how we describe this week. It's like a landslide, volcano, and hurricane all hit at the same time.
I want a hellstorm too, and you're pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, this helped everyone kind of work through some of the cycle.
They're not alone.
Yeah, this is why we have pets.
West is here to help everyone work through all of their issues after this game week.
Yes, Finn is also here, but I don't know if he's here for us or if he's just ready to be fed.
Yeah, that we're all in the same.
Yeah. West dinner time is coming around the corner.
And because of daylight savings time, he thinks it's already dinner time.
Gosh, yes.
Yep. So he was ready for breakfast at 4 a.m. this morning.
All right. Well, I think closing thoughts for me that, like I always say, there's 38 game weeks. We're going into week 12, so we're not even close. We're not halfway through the season. Let's just keep perspective, up and downs, keep balance as FPL owners, and just remember, we play the game for fun. This is what we do. We enjoy it. It's another way for us to embrace the Premier League, even if all the things around it, it is what it is. And I love it. I'm here for it, guys. And I've enjoyed talking to you two.
Yeah. And Kyle, thanks for joining us. I think my differential shout of the week before we go, Evan Ferguson. I think he gets at least a brace this weekend.
Let's hope Toma does.
We'll see. Yeah. But Kyle, once again, thanks for joining us. And everyone.
Guys.
You're welcome anytime, Kyle.
Yeah. Everyone, thanks for joining us. And we will be back with you all next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.